I don't know. Say it with me. I don't know. Good God, it is liberating. I am a towering mountain of ignorance. I don't know. We're taught to believe that everything has a reason. And so we observe the world, we see what happened, and then we define the thing that happened as the reason the thing happened. But I think a lot of the time we end up mixing up thinking something with knowing something. This is why it can be so impossible to talk about certain topics with certain people. They've tied those suppositions to themselves so tightly with knots of narrative and constructed reality and values that there's just no untying it. And maybe unsurprisingly, in those situations, the best course of action is just to be friends. Maybe even ask them about that thing that they've created, because to them, it's immensely valuable. The world as we perceive it, as we've built it inside of ourselves, is a lie that we tell to ourselves, not out of deception, but out of necessity. We have no other choice. We simply cannot understand the world as it is, and so we construct. But sometimes I just have to tell myself the thing that is definitely true, the truest thing I can say, which is that I don't know.
Never know.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Bob Pondillo and Cass Midgley.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 139 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Today, we bring you two interviews. First, I do a 30-minute interview with author Solan McClean about his new book, Learning to Drive into the Now. Followed by Bob and I interviewing Stephen Barry about his minority trifecta, black, gay, and atheist. We taped these conversations on January 22nd, 2017. We interview people you don't know about a subject no one wants to talk about. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Please subscribe to our podcast or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, you can support us monetarily in two easy ways. You can pledge a per-episode amount on patreon.com or leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. Our opening monologue is an excerpt from a YouTube by Hank Green titled Towering Mountain of Ignorance. The music behind it is Never Know by Jack Johnson. The segue music on this episode was created by our guest, the Barry Orchestra, found at barryorchestra.bandcamp.com. Thanks for listening, and be a yes-sayer to what is. Many ex-Christians and atheists have discovered the benefits of living a contemplative life, being self-aware, practicing mindfulness, or meditating regularly. Sam Harris has written extensively on these things. These terms can make us think of self-help gurus or woo-woo, but my first guest today posits that people of faith or no faith can benefit from such practices. In particular today, we're talking about his new book, Learning to Drive into the Now, PRND. You may recognize that acronym as the gears on your car: park, reverse, neutral, and drive. But Solan uses them to remember his method of meditational driving: practice, relax, now, drive. Solan's a brilliant guy. Literally, he's a member of Mensa. I think you're going to find him interesting. So here's my short interview with Solan McClean. Okay, I'm here with Solan McClean, right? That's how you say your name?
That is correct.
And you contacted me, and at first I thought you were a woo-woo whack job, and I did some more reading up on it, because one of the things about the atheist movement is, when you go from, not just the atheist movement, there's a big difference between the atheist movement and the ex-Christian movement, or the ex-religious. Lifelong atheists, they've got their own angst towards religion and stuff, but an ex-Christian almost can have PTSD from it, and so it's a much bigger deal for somebody who was just a zealous Christian, maybe even a fundamentalist, and just threw their whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, into something, only to find out that they'd been lied to, or that it was a myth, or that there's a lot of anxiety in an ex-Christian because they feel duped. They feel stupid. They feel like they've thrown a lot of their life away, maybe even money.
Yep.
A lot of times, especially if they've been clergy like myself, they've got to figure out how to reinvent themselves at midlife. Friends and family won't talk to you. So the show was started to help people on a deconversion journey not feel so alone.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you wrote me, I wrote you back and I said, well, do you have an ex-Christian story? And you said, yeah, actually, I was a Catholic. And so let's start there. Tell me a little bit about your Christian upbringing.
All right. Well, I was raised Catholic. My father wasn't so into it, but he kind of went along with it from my mother. And my mother was from a small coal mining town in Pennsylvania, and they were poor immigrant people, and they were pretty devout Catholic. And I believe my mother was raised in an Orthodox form of that, Eastern European Orthodox Christian. But anyway, so I was brought up in the Catholic Church where I live. I was taught early on in church school and later on in communion class and all those things about this God that I should fear, who's always watching me and judging me. Early on as a kid, to me, the whole idea was kind of scary.
Sure.
But your parents are telling you that this is the way it is. And
that he's loving at the same time.
Well, that's what they say is, God loves you. And I'm thinking, no, why is he judging me? And why is his hellfire and brimstone going to rain down on me if I make a poor choice? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or for just being who I am, for just being human.
Well, I'm a heterosexual male, but if I was a gay male, I can only imagine what that's like.
Well, sure. But to give you a disease and then expect you to be healed of it in order to, miss out on eternal torture, this is just not a very good contract.
Well, I agree. And, the thing is, as I grew older, I became more and more suspect of the whole idea. And I began to learn the control that religion has over people, and that it was used as a tool of control all throughout history. And, I don't think I was older than probably 10 or 11 when I started to say to myself, did these people really believe this? Including my mother, which kind of made me feel confused.
Yeah.
But, I think I was a seeker at an early age because I said to myself, this can't be right. Maybe there's something right about it, but the way they're presenting it, that's not right.
Yeah.
And to see all these people on Sunday stand up, 1,000 people or whatever, stand up and just go along with this, to me was just baffling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think now when I sit down in a church and I look around, and I used to be not only in those pews, but in that pulpit.
Sure.
And now when I look around, I just go, I want to stand up and say, wake up or something.
Yeah.
It feels like a hypnotized group of people or something.
I think you really said a mouthful with the word wake up. And, the reason I'm talking to you today is because I've written this book called Learning to Drive into the Now. And it's about mindfulness meditation while driving. It's a practice of mindfulness meditation.
Yeah, and I'm interested in mindfulness. Now, here's where at first I thought, well, this is woo-woo. In my journey out of evangelical Christianity, I'd made a lot of stops along the way, kind of an Oprah spirituality, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Thich Nhat Hanh, those last two of which I still deeply respect. And I did some meditating and I did some mindfulness and stuff, but I'm a very anxious and impatient person, and so it didn't really work for me very well.
Sure.
And here's the other thing that appealed to me from your book and from your topic is that one of the points of contention in my marriage is that my wife is the most patient person in the world. She works with small children. She works with special needs children. I mean, she's really good at what she does. And so she's very patient, where I'm like this ADHD, firecracker. I've got to get from point A to point B, even though there's really no urgency. I feel urgent, and that, so this point of contention is she hates my driving. So you caught my ear when you're talking about, this technique for driving. Secondly, I just got diagnosed at 50 years old as one with some depression issues. And I had a spell in the last couple of months with it was triggered by an event that I won't go into details of, but I found myself in an anxious and panicked state in a vortex that I couldn't think my way out of. And I was basically cycling through what might be like the stages of grief. I'd reach a place of acceptance, and then before long I was back in denial, and then all the way through again. And to the point where I was suicidal. And it scared me, and I didn't know what to do, and I checked myself into the emergency room with a mental breakdown. And, of course, you say the word suicide in an emergency room, and they lock you down.
Sure.
And they kept me for 4 hours until they realized that I was going to be safe to be alone. But they immediately prescribed, well, not immediately, but they followed up with a checkup and an evaluation, and they suggested I do this, what they call a partial hospitalization program, where from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, you're in group therapy, intense group therapy. And so I went, and my insurance paid for it, and it was really helpful. But mindfulness was part of the some of the training there. And so, even though I'm atheist and I don't believe in woo-woo, and I certainly don't believe in supernaturalism, I am a pragmatist, and by golly, if it works, I'm interested.
Yeah, that something? Your experience and my experience are not very different.
Okay.
I too, like you, went through a period of my life where I had intense anxiety disorder and, bordering on dysthymia, they called it, which is like kind of a free-flowing form of depression. And I too went to seek medical attention, and I ended up being extremely lucky and getting a psychiatrist who the guy was actually a former Russian gymnast. He was also a practicing Buddhist, and he never pushed that on me, but he did help me with relaxation, visualization, and mindfulness. And mindfulness is not something that you get explained. Somebody can't explain it to you and then bang, you get it.
No,
it's completely experiential, and it comes in very small doses. The more you practice, the more you kind of connect with what I like to call my higher self, or my inner being, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But basically all that is, and you've read Eckhart Tolle, so you know what like egoic thinking is,
Sure.
thinking from your analytical judging mind. The whole idea of this is to quiet that part of yourself.
I'm all ears.
Yeah, there's no denying that our intelligence is the gift that separates us from the rest of the animals in the world. It makes us able to do more things and change our environment and kind of, to some degree, manifest our own destiny.
Right.
But we as human beings inside our own heads tend to listen to that constant chatter of our thinking and start to believe that this is who we really are.
You're right.
And it becomes our experience in life. And that's what leads a lot of us to have a lot of anxiety.
Right.
Is we're always looking into the future, and we're always putting expectations out and dreaming scenarios that may or may not happen, usually to the worst, not for the best.
Right.
And it creates anxiety. We're also remembering past failures,
Shaming.
old wounds, all those things, and that's kind of part of being a human being. But we can become overwhelmed by it.
Absolutely.
Right, and so I think a lot of people are in this position, especially Americans. We have a certain freedom to kind of live a life where we can have time to think, and in other words, we're living a fairly comfortable life. We don't have to go out and kill our food and fight in a revolution and all this rest of the stuff, which I think you completely forget about all the rest of the stuff we're talking about if that was the case.
Right.
So we kick back and we live this life of memories and delusional forecasts of how our life's going to be, but we miss the current moment and the reality of where we are right now.
Yeah.
So what mindfulness seeks to do is just to let our egoic mind, or as the Buddhists call it, your monkey mind, your thinking mind, just rest. And rest enough that you can get the experience of the current moment. And it's it brings a lot of serenity into your life. And so the whole idea behind Learning to Drive into the Now, the book, and the practice of mindfulness driving is, for me, I don't have time to sit on a cushion for 45 minutes a day or whatever. I have 4 little kids and I have a business, and but I always noticed when I was driving, this is the time that I was by myself with no other distractions except driving. And what I would normally do is crank the music, drink a coffee, maybe eat something, occasionally look down at the text on my phone. I had all these things going on. And at the same time, I was kind of on edge. So somebody would pull in front of me. I'd swear at him. I'd honk at him. I'd start some, that whole thing goes with driving and
road rage.
Roadway, yeah, to an extent, sure. And I was also like you. I was kind of an aggressive driver. I want to get point A to point B as quickly as possible.
Yeah. You know what I tell myself, Solan, is that the less amount of time that I'm on this road, the safer I'll be. And so that's what I tell myself.
Yes. At the same time, I had this thought of, I've got this time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the only time I have. I also started noticing in conversations that people would keep bringing up these things. Oh, this guy cut me off. I was driving down the road. Everybody had a story about their time in their car where they were unhappy or aggressive or vindictive. And so I thought, if I can develop a mindfulness driving practice that will make me a safer driver, a more compassionate driver, and a more aware driver, not only will I be a safer driver, and a more calm, serene driver, I'll probably be a more calm, serene human being. Yeah. So I started developing the practice on my own.
Okay.
And it worked. It was, the first time I ever really tried to use it, one of the things I tried to do is set the intention at the start of my drive to work in the morning to be a safe, compassionate, aware driver. So I had studied meditation at the Zen Center where I live, and I had sat with Vipassana meditation teachers and stuff. I honestly didn't have the time to do it justice, so I just didn't do it. But I took some of those elements that they had taught, and I brought it into my driver's seat. And as I drove, I focused all my attention on exactly what I was doing, the feeling of the wheel in my hands, the smell of the air in the car, the horizon in front of me, the other cars, and I kept having to bring my attention back to the current moment. My mind would drift off, and I start thinking about, when I get to work today, I got to call this guy, and this guy's a jerk, and I got to deal with him. And then I say, wait a minute, you're doing it again. Bring your mind back to the current moment. Feel your hands on the wheel. Look at the traffic. And I started paying more attention to what I was doing driving. Since the current moment is dynamic, it just never stops, my focus had to become dynamic with it. And as it would be drawn back away into my thinking, I'd keep bringing it back. And that's where the practice of mindfulness comes in.
The one thing about mindfulness, when you're talking about bringing your thoughts back, and just kind of fresh on my mind because I just got out of group therapy last week. One thing that I heard that really, I'm sure I'd heard it before, but for some reason it didn't register because I was hearing it for the first time in my own mind, and that is, thoughts are not the enemy. We don't have to fight our thoughts. You just acknowledge that they're there and then bring yourself back into the moment. But I was always, it's kind of like don't think of pink elephants. I mean, if you're in a battle with a thought, you're going to lose. But that mindfulness to say, even ask the thought, what do you need from me right now? And if it's nothing, or maybe it is something or whatever, but just play nice with your thoughts.
That is very sound advice, because what we seek to do in mindfulness is to find some kind of unity within ourselves. Now, I don't want to stop thinking, that's for sure.
Right.
What I want to do is to exactly what you talk about. I want to recognize my thoughts for what they are. They're thoughts. They are not the enemy. There's something that comes out of my thinking egoic mind. Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is, about the ego, if you isolate the ego in yourself and you look at it, the ego is the part of you that judges and many times judges yourself, judges pretty harshly. Yeah. It has a lot of expectations that when they're not met, they're very disappointing. It's the part of you that remembers and feels shame or why didn't things work out, and that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's a part of being a human being, is having that. But sure. what I have found, and this is exactly the sound advice that you received, is if I acknowledge those thoughts as just thoughts and not who I am or as the truth, and I move my attention back to the current moment, that energy of those thoughts and that emotion within my body just kind of collapses in on itself. And that's where the clarity of mindfulness really happens, is that, I always say, and I say this in the book, that that your car becomes your laboratory. It's the laboratory of yourself. And what you're learning to do is to watch yourself. You're learning to watch your thoughts, watch your mind, and then consciously and with intention, recognize them for what they are, and then bring your attention back to the dynamic current moment and what you're doing, and which is driving. Yeah. And it is a practice. It's not like this. It's not a philosophy or something that's going to change
or
the way
formula.
you live. Exactly. What it is it's an experience.
Yeah. And I think everybody's going to experience it differently, practice it differently, apply it differently.
That is absolutely correct.
And one of the things that we're giving ourselves permission to do here is you do you. Do what works for you. There is no right or wrong to this stuff. And I love, part of what I know you walked away from religion is that you said in your email to me that was like the dogma. We don't need the dogma. We're all, but we also don't want to throw out all the truth that might be embedded in some of these ancient thinkings. I mean, here we are talking about Buddhism, which, by the way, is an atheism. There is no God in Buddhism. And so there's just wisdom. I love this license to be, you're the agent of your own happiness. And that's not true when you're a Christian. You've ceded your agency to God. You're not your own. You've been bought with a price. You're actually wretched. You can do no good without him. In him, you can do all things, but without him, you can do nothing, So part of the freedom that some of us ex-Christians have felt is that, wait a second, we're responsible for ourselves. God's not going to save us. We're not going to be able to cast our sins on a scapegoat or whatever. We're responsible for our lives. We're responsible for our behavior. We're responsible for how we show up as a spouse or a lover or a parent or a friend or a worker. And this agency comes in, especially for those of us who have that atrophied agency because we've basically been trusting God with our thoughts and lives for, however many decades. This is coming up as a very powerful feeling. And I don't know how I'm going to make the jump to this, but I do know that with that comes not only the responsibility, but the responsibility. and that is to rein this thing in. And what I mean by that is this anxiety vortex that I've gotten myself into a few times that I can't get myself out of. And these are some tools. What you're saying, there's some tools out there. And so another thing that I learned in that training that really struck me is that in the automatic nervous system, or the autonomic, they call it different things, but it's basically the nerves that take care of our bodies that are involuntary. And so there's two kinds. There's sympathetic and there's parasympathetic. And sympathetic is basically fight or flight. So it tells you that this is danger, and that, there's a rustling in the leaves, that whole thing to where, is it the wind or is it a tiger, and our minds are trying to decide this. Well, the cool thing about the 21st century, like you said, about living in relative comfort, that we don't have to go out and kill our food, is that impulse, that sympathetic nervous system that drives our fight or flight mechanism is actually not that necessary in the 21st century, and that we can actually ignore that more than we think. This other thing, though, is this parasympathetic, and this has to do with our body's need for rest and digestion. And the thing that struck me, especially as somebody who is so impatient, and I live my life in this sense of urgency and anxiety and panic, and to help me, what my wife would call calm the fuck down, to help me calm down this parasympathetic nervous system, the thing about sleep and digestion is, even though those are necessary things, and your body's going to tell you when you're tired and when you need to wake up, it's going to tell you when you need to pee or poop or when you're hungry. But the thing about those things, compared to the fight or flight is kind of now, do something now. And like your body tells you you're sleepy, we still have the agency to postpone that. Say, yeah, I know I'm tired, but I've got to finish this paper. If we're hungry, we can say, yeah, I know I'm hungry, but I'm still 30 minutes from the next exit, and I'll eat when I get there. And the same with peeing and pooping or something. Even though it's a necessity, it's not urgent. And for some reason, this just struck me that I do not have to live with like a ring through my nose by the fight or flight nervous impulse, that everything is urgent. In fact, if I ever got a tattoo, I might say nothing is urgent.
It's philosophy to live by.
Right. It's kind of Zen, but...
right, and all it means is hang loose.
Yeah, there's just lighten up. Don't take yourself so seriously or your life. Nothing is urgent. And boy, I'm just trying to settle into that. Like, that's a contemplative meditation that I need to like soak in. And so when you're driving down the road, like I too have a long commute every day. I'm at least 1 hour one way, so 2 hours a day, I'm stuck in the car. Now, for me, it's interesting that your little commute inspired this book. My little commute inspired this podcast, because what I would do is I would find podcasts or audiobooks, and that would help me stay calm in the car because I was so entertained. There was a part of me that, I was mad when I got to my destination because I'd have to turn off my radio. So I was so inspired by podcasters that I started my own. So our cars, Solan, are points of inspiration for both of us.
They are, and a lot of people seek a distraction.
Yeah, that's what it basically was, yeah.
Right. But, and it was also a good use of your time from a very practical standpoint.
Right. It's educational and yeah, all that.
Yeah, and you talk about the autonomic and the sympathetic nervous system and people's reactions. And when I was learning meditation techniques, a big part of it was breathing. And the way that breathing works for meditation exercises is pretty cool because, like you say, breathing is something that if we don't think about it, we still breathe.
You're right.
But we have the option of consciously taking control of our breathing and holding our breath to go underwater or whatever, or control how many breaths we take. And,
or how deep, all of that.
Yep. In ancient India, they taught pranayama, which is breathing exercises, breathing meditation. And so my thought about that was, and I talk about this in the book, is that as people have used the breath as the gateway to calming the mind in meditation, driving is the same thing. Okay. Like you said, you listen to a podcast on your hour drive, you've never even thought about driving. You didn't think about jogging the wheel a couple degrees left, a couple degrees right, putting on the gas, letting off the gas. You don't think about it. It happens automatically.
Yeah.
But you have the option of taking that back into your conscious mind and turning, going to the left or going to the right. But if you don't think about it, you're automatically going to do it without your conscious mind entering into it very much.
Yeah. So what does this look like for you? You turn the radio off.
Yeah, here's what it looks like for me. There's the title of the book is Learning to Drive into the Now, PRND. And of course, the first thing everybody says is, well, what the hell's PRND? Well, if you look at your gear shift, it's park, reverse, neutral, drive. That reminder is always in your face, which I think is a great thing. And for me, I looked at my gear shift and said PRND. That could stand for me for P is for practice. And what that means is to set your intention when you're getting into the car. On this drive, I'm going to practice. And what that means is you turn the radio off, you turn off your ringer on your cell phone, you don't bring food or drink. You're just ready to put forth your practice.
No, you've just crossed the line there, man. You can't you can't ask me to leave my coffee at home.
To be honest with you, I sometimes do bring it myself.
Okay.
Because I got to have coffee. But so the R, which is normally reverse, is for relax. So when you start out, when I get in my car, I have my intention. I'm gonna practice mindfulness driving today. I sit in the car, and for me, I do work in front of a computer all the time. Most of my tension is centered on my neck and shoulders.
Right.
So when I sit, I relax my neck and shoulders. I try to relax my body completely. I look for tension spots, my hands, whatever. So I relax. The N, which is for neutral in a car, I've repurposed into now. So what that means is you're going to bring your attention into the now. So you have your intention to practice, your body is relaxed, your mind is somewhat relaxed, and you bring your intention into the now and you turn the key, you feel the key turning, you feel your hands on the wheel, you look at the R when you put your car in reverse to back down your driveway. You try to be conscious of the dynamics that are happening around you in the current moment. And the D is for drive, which is going to be your practice. D is the jumping off point. Now you're driving, pulling out of your driveway and you're on your commute.
Right.
Now begins the practice. And the practice is going to be watching your mind, recognizing when your thinking mind is taking over, your egoic mind is taking over, and bringing your attention back into the now. And if you get lost, you just look at that PRND. Okay, am I relaxed?
Okay, so when like you said, historically people use breathing. That's that's the number one thing really amongst all meditations and mindfulness is focus on the breathing. But you're saying focus on driving.
Focus on drive. Yeah. And, part of that practice when you're driving can be your breathing,
Yeah, you can do both, yeah. So I have permission from you to do, in an hour commute, can I do 15 minutes of this and then listen to podcasts? Can I do both?
You know what? You can do 5 minutes of it because, there's nothing really, there's no end game.
Yeah.
It is and only is a practice.
Yeah.
So what I got out of this early on, and what I think people get out of this early on, is they get those glimpses of clarity where their mind is not churning, and they're in their own body and they feel comfortable in their own skin for a minute. Sometimes it lasts 5 seconds, and then you're like, wow, that was really interesting. That way I felt very clear and relaxed. And that little taste is what gets you to keep practicing.
Okay.
And the more you practice, the bigger those time spans become. And what happens for me is after practicing for several weeks, I got better at it. I was able to get more clarity out of it. Yeah. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to carry this out of my car, and I'm going to become a more compassionate, calmer, more serene person when I walk out the door of my car. Mm-hmm. And I started practicing that, and it worked. Wow. And I thought, man, I might be onto something here, you know?
And your coworkers are probably grateful.
Well, I own my own company, so I'm sure they are.
Oh, okay. Well, great, yeah. So how could people get your book, Solan?
My book is available on Amazon as as an ebook and Kindle.
Okay.
It's available in paperback. It's available on Audible in audiobook, which I read myself. It's also available. Well, it's actually available anywhere.
I love it when the author reads their own book because you really.
I think that adds a lot to it.
So your name, just for our audience sake, the Solan is Solan. McClean is McClean. The name of the book is Learning to Drive into the Now. PRND. I did not catch that the first time that's actually the gears.
Yeah, practice, relax, now drive. And, also they can, if they just want to learn more or read a sample of the book, they can go to solanmcclean.com and they can read my blog or whatever they'd want to find out.
Yeah, and you got some sample pages there as well. Just before we go, I like to get at least a little bit of the human side of our guests, so it's not just this caricature or this icon. So, tell us what some of your hobbies or what movies or TV shows you Netflix binge or anything.
Well, both my wife and I are big premium cable consumers, so we watch Homeland and all the big HBO shows we're very into. We've watched every Survivor since the start of Survivor, and everybody makes jokes about that to us.
Wow! So Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones for sure.
House of Cards or
House of Cards. Yep.
Are you doing Westworld at all?
Something. I'm old enough that when Westworld came out as a movie, I remember, and I watched it. I started watching the series, and it kind of seemed kind of slow to me, and I knew what happened in the movie, and I kind of lost interest. But everybody's been raving about it, so I'll probably have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, but slow is you're not the first to be. That's a major complaint of it, and I've enjoyed it. I've been trying to, I'm always looking for the metaphor, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sure, there's a lot there.
What about something about yourself that is totally unique that very few people know about you?
I am actually a member of Mensa.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm also a recovered alcoholic, 27 years without a drink.
Well, another congratulations.
And an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous to this day. I'm also a Master Mason.
Okay, what is that? In the Masonic Temple or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now that sounds a little bit. That's a secret society, but you dig it, huh?
It's not really a secret society. It's more of a society with secrets. But yeah, I mean, it's more of a
fraternity.
Yeah, you know what? It's a fraternity for people who are too old to be in college.
Yeah, and you've made some great friends through that.
Yeah, it's a really good organization, and my grandfather was a Mason, so it's kind of an ancestral thing with me too. And cool. But they do a lot of good charitable works, which is not a bad thing.
You have any children?
I have 6 children and 3 grandchildren.
My gosh.
Yeah, I've got little kids. I've got twin 6-year-olds, and then I've got a daughter that's 29 years old. I actually have a granddaughter that's older than my kids.
Oh, wow. So what about pets?
Well, I love dogs, and our dog of many years, golden retriever, passed away, and I wanted to break from having a big dog, so I bought my wife a rescue cat, and that cat's awesome. It's like a dog.
Okay. Well, Solan, thank you so much, and when I gave in and said, I actually think this guy has something to say to my audience and to me, especially in my most recent episode with depression and anxiety and mindfulness. And The other thing is, I think, like, this is science. This is not woo-woo. This is
yeah. Hey, another interesting point I wanted to make about my book, and about mindfulness meditation is, if you're an atheist, it can work. If you're a born again Christian, it can work. If you're a Muslim, it can work. It's not a religious thing at all.
Well, but to certain Christianities, this is a porthole to Satan.
Well, you know what? Anything. This is like Scientology. I mean, you can say anything you want.
Well, you open up your heart and mind to anything but Jesus, and you're opening up to the demonic world, and you're going to be demon possessed by the time you arrive at work with this little thing here.
That sounds like a control tool to me.
You're dead on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Solan, really, seriously, thanks for coming on. I think this is relevant stuff, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks, Cass. It was wonderful to be a guest on your podcast.
So that's my talk with Solan McClean. You can find his book at most book outlets and find out more about him at his website, solanmcclean.com. That's SOLANMCCLEAN.com. There's a link in the show notes. Next up, Stephen Barry is a young African-American man who is atheist and gay. He's a former Seventh-day Adventist and was devout in his faith and pursuit of God. He lives in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he drove down just to be live with us in the studio. So let's get into it. So Stephen is our guest, and you're from Chattanooga.
Yes.
Drove up from Chattanooga just to...
Yeah, baby.
Just to tape a live show. We could have done Skype, but we Bob and I were just saying we prefer the live guest.
Yeah, it's great to be able to look at you and talk to you and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't have anything to do today. So.
That's right.
What is it? What do you normally do for a living?
I work at a hospital, and I work in sterile processing. So I make sure that the surgical instruments work and that they're clean. So
thank you for that. We appreciate it. Yeah.
So mid-surgery, a doctor discovers a dirty scalpel.
Woo!
It's your problem.
It's probably my fault.
It's probably going to be your head on a platter.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there are checks and double checks and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
That's important stuff, germ theory and all.
Yeah. Yeah, there are.
So how old are you?
I am 27.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Tell us about your religious upbringing.
I grew up in the Adventist church, Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yeah, the Millerites.
Ryan Bell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that you're active on Life After God as well.
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I connected with his group. And
Well, yeah, you get that. I mean, Seventh-day Adventists are not very prominent in Oklahoma when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I knew they met on Saturdays, but other than that, I didn't know any.
Yeah.
I really didn't know the doctrinal differences.
They were the Millerites. Remember the Millerites? They were the ones that in the 1840s they came forward, and this guy Miller said that the world was going to end in 42 or something, and then it didn't end. And he said, I meant 43, and then it didn't end. Then there was the great disappointment, and then eventually it turned into Seventh-day Adventists. Yeah.
So were your parents rigid or fundamentalists?
Yes, it wasn't. When I hear stories of fundamentalist Adventist, it kind of varies. There's some people that are like, look like Amish people, and
really,
they don't, they didn't have televisions. They didn't have, there's some people who are like, and really like, oh wow, I had it pretty great, but.
So like you're saying, when they don't have televisions, they're the kind that come away and be separate. Be not yoked with unbelievers.
Yeah, they're like
be not of this world, and those kind of people.
Oh, okay.
You're going to find that in every denomination as far as people, especially in the Gospel of John. The world is a bad place and scary place, and Satan will get you, and so there's a demon behind every door or whatever.
Under every bed.
And so it's a little bit like, I think about What About Bob, where he was afraid to go outside and he used a handkerchief to touch every doorknob.
Yeah.
Sure. Germophobia or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's this fear of the world, and that the only people you trust are fellow Seventh-day Adventists or fellow Baptists or whatever it is you are.
Yeah.
And, so you're right. That type of fundamentalism shows up probably in Islam. I mean, like there's just wherever
Yeah.
And like we've said before on the show, that sometimes fundamentalism shows up in politics to where the only people I'll associate with is fellow Republicans or
Democrats.
Yeah,
or
just
whatever.
a fear of the other, just a general xenophobia that kind of comes with the religion or comes with the fundamentalism.
Part of the package.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
But that wasn't you.
That wasn't me.
Thankfully.
Yeah. There was a strong intention to, like, I think my mom wanted her kids to know, like, okay, this is what we believe.
Yeah.
And we're really going to try to do this thing. We're going to try to live like how the Bible says. And
So she would teach, maybe read Bible to you at night, or was it proactive at home or just?
it was very proactive.
Okay.
Also, I was homeschooled a lot.
Okay.
So I was completely homeschooled through high school and various grades.
For religious reasons?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
What about siblings? How many siblings you got?
I just have one. My sister's like almost 3 years older than me.
Was she homeschooled too, or did they?
Yeah.
So your mom was a stay-at-home, or?
Yeah. For the most part, I mean, kind of like midway in my preteens, she was a single parent, so then she had to work a little bit. But yeah, there was a lot of homeschooling. I got a chance to go to public school twice. 1 year is kind of like a middle class area, so it was like, it wasn't really that much different, you know, kind of. It wasn't like religious, but it was like very safe.
Okay.
And the
But getting up and going to school, you're with. I mean, what about your social skills? Did you feel like homeschooling maybe hindered your?
Yeah, I definitely think it did. Also, I guess I can't put it totally on that. I think I'm kind of an introvert anyway. So it was just kind of like it stunted it even more. Like I was already kind of quiet and, you know, didn't really say too much. I was kind of observing the world and, you know, just trying to do everything that I was taught.
A watcher.
And a good boy.
Yeah, trying to be a good boy.
So you mentioned your mom, single mom in your teens and stuff. Your dad left at what age?
He left at age 11 and then they got divorced at age 12. So it was like 2001.
What's your relationship with him now?
There is none.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I haven't seen him since 2008. I did try, you know, I had conversations with people, some of my Christian friends. They're like, you know, you need to give him a chance, you need to forgive him, all that. And I'm cool with that because I don't want to like harbor, I don't like hate.
Yeah.
Hate is like, takes too much energy.
Right.
It really does.
I agree.
Yeah, grudges aren't really healthy.
Yeah. And it's just something that I didn't really have because I feel like we've never had a relationship and you have to have like a certain amount of love or something. There has to be something there.
And there really wasn't ever anything there.
Yeah. So, you know, I tried to give him a chance. I'd say maybe like 3 years ago. Kind of ironically, that was around about the time that I was done with the church and I kind of came out as an atheist. I was like, you know what, I'll give him a call or I'll try to. I just graduated from school and we talked for an hour and that was the longest conversation we've ever had.
On the phone?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was also the last conversation I had. So.
Oh, well.
Did he kind of move on and start another family or what's he doing?
Yeah, he remarried, but he was in the military, by the way. I skipped that completely. So I was a military brat.
Did you move around a lot?
A lot.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, there's another social challenge.
Yeah.
With befriending peers, you know, along the way.
Yeah, you lose them so quickly. You
Yeah.
move here and there.
And sometimes you just get to where, what's the point in making them? And so you just kind of,
sometimes it hurts so much to keep leaving them.
Yeah, become a recluse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that also had an effect on my church experience. Like, I went to so many different churches, and I was never there long enough to really, like, feel like, you know, kind of have that church feeling like, oh, this is home, this is family.
Yeah.
You know, you got people in there like, oh, I've seen this guy from when he was, like, a little whatever, and now he's up on the podium and doing stuff for the Lord or whatever. You know, so, like, I never really had that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was me either, if it was just the people, but I just never really felt accepted. You know, I just kind of felt like I go here, there's people that I know I've seen before, and maybe we'll go eat dinner at somebody's house, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, you're African American, you're gay, and you're atheist.
Yeah,
like, man,
triple minority.
I was going to say, man, like, get him. He's everything.
Yeah,
he's everybody.
Well, and you take that with the military and the homeschooling, and you're.
Yeah, guaranteed to not fit in anywhere.
It's tough.
But true. But I mean, look at you. You're a nice fella, you're a hail fellow well met, as they say. And but there must be some deep moral convictions that you have. I mean, you have to have these because there's too much shit against you. You know what I mean? You can't do anything about the African American, but you can't
do anything about being gay. You really can't do anything about being atheist either.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a strong moral conviction, you sure can't. I mean, you could go, well, I'll just go along with this shit, but you can't.
No,
you must not. So, talk about that. Where do you find your strength?
I think I'm still trying to answer it, actually. Over time, I dealt a lot with depression when I was younger. I think a lot of that had to do with just religious guilt, or just trying to do everything right, but still kind of always feeling like, well, you feel attracted to men, or you're like all these things in my head. It's like, so you're wrong, or you're not.
You're a bad person.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you know? Like, when everybody says, when they're a kid, they go
puberty.
Puberty?
Yeah.
I like that guy. I don't like that girl so much, or something. Like it's around
it's
12, 13, something like that.
Yeah, you're gonna know because that's the age when guys start getting into girls.
Yeah, sure. The hormones
They want to see porn. They want to, To give you a good example, when I first, my freshman year at college, and I went to Southern Adventist University, I got there and I was hanging out at the guys' dorm, and like I'm cool, I came from a really small town, so like I'm around people my age, like it's cool, it's fun. And the first couple of days I was there, everyone that I was hanging out with, they're like, let's go to the girls' dorm. I'm like, why? Why do we need to go over there? I had no desire to go over there. And that's kind of just how it is. Like, if you're a heterosexual male, that's what you're thinking about from puberty on. So, and I wasn't. So at first I thought, well, maybe it's just hasn't kicked in yet. Or, even though I'm already starting to notice certain things, like certain attractions, certain feelings, people I'm drawn to. And, people all growing up, whether it's been at school or church or whatever, people have always kind of been like, oh, is he gay, or are you gay? Or, there was one time I was at a pastor's house after church, and at one point the pastor's wife was talking to my mom, and she asked her, does he even like girls? And that made my mom really upset, because I guess she was being protective or whatever.
Yeah.
But
well, she could be defensive by a question like that.
Yeah.
Almost a how dare you ask me that.
Yeah, I think we kind of left early.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to a Christian woman, like, you're insinuating that my son is gay, and that's offensive to her.
Yeah, sure. But you've got that whole religious thing you have to deal with as well now, because you grew up in this. Well, I guess you didn't say it was very heavily religious.
Oh yeah, it was. It was? Absolutely.
Okay, so you got this thing. You're being gay. And then you have to deal with the stories that the Bible and the religion tells you about being gay. So that's a problem. I mean, that's a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about that is that I didn't really know what being gay was. Like, it didn't really click in my mind because I didn't have an example. I hadn't seen anything on TV. I hadn't seen anything in real life because I was really sheltered. I take that back. At some point, I had seen like The Birdcage, like the movie with Robin Williams. At some point, I had seen that, but it still didn't register. It's just like, oh, okay, it's like a funny movie, like like Mrs. Doubtfire or whatever. Like, they're doing the funny thing.
Yeah, cross-dressing.
Yeah. But like in my mind, when it kind of clicked for me, there's just kind of like this instinct is like, this is wrong, or other people are going to like feel they're not going to accept this or whatever. It wasn't like I didn't have the full understanding of what everything meant. And I really didn't get a full understanding until much later. Like maybe 4 or 5 years later.
I think, Bob, you and I have talked about it before, and because you're so into movies and into, you know, the showbiz, that you've talked about the importance of having gay characters on TV so that young children can see. I mean, it's the equivalent of even you know, when somebody might say that's a minority, they'd say, everywhere I look, on billboards, on TV shows, on movies, it's like, there's nobody like me, you know.
Right.
And so that can make a person feel very lonely and very isolated, and so it's the same with gay and you know, LGBT characters, and this is the very reason why Christians oppose so many gay characters on TV, because they want to keep people like Stephen feeling those gay feelings, keep those at bay.
Right.
And seeing a character on TV gives them permission.
Right.
Which is exactly what we want to give people, is permission to be themselves.
Usually it bubbles up through the you know, media culture. That's the first place we see people other than ourselves all the time. And Will and Grace, in fact, Rick Santorum, the former senator, said Will and Grace made people gay just by watching Will and Grace.
Well, they don't believe gay is a real thing. God never made anybody gay.
Yeah, right. I think it's a learned
It's a
behavior.
choice.
It's
of
a
some
syndrome.
Kind.
It's a pathology. It's an illness.
Yeah.
And
malfunction.
This is where Santorum would say that show made them gay.
Right, exactly.
Because he can't acknowledge that God would ever make anybody gay. You know, that's just that's not in his vocabulary, or, you know.
Right.
Seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then God would be making things that he hates.
Right. And, you know, characters on television, like, you know, Will and Grace can make you gay as much as watching Jerry Seinfeld can make you funny.
Or Jewish.
Or Jewish. Exactly. That's not going to happen.
No.
But it's important to see that. And I think, too, because, you know, there is a lot of very sensitive and gay folks and have been in movies and television forever. In fact, you can argue that we understand gay culture a lot because we've seen it a lot throughout the movies, you know,
not
since
enough.
the beginning of the movies.
I mean,
yeah,
I barely understand it, and I mean, you know,
because it's been camouflaged, you know,
and it's been, you know, hidden and swept under the rug, and I think probably one of the most premier personalities to do good for the movement is Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh yeah,
because even my mom, you know, who's a Christian and a homophobe, she has to admit, I love Ellen. Sure. I think Ellen's a great person.
Yeah. People like her because she's nice and she's really funny.
And kind.
And,
she's a kind
But
person.
she's simultaneously unapologetic about her sexual orientation, which is beautiful.
Yeah, that's
powerful.
That's true. There were people in the 1950s, there were like segregationists, big segregationists that loved Nat King Cole. You know what I mean? They just loved him.
Of course.
But they were, you know, segregation now, segregation forever.
I think it's more of like they like the product. Like, you know, I can make music and the music is good. So you like the music, but maybe not so much the person or like the background that they come from.
What I've experienced...
I guess. There's all sorts of ways they chop it up. Yeah.
What I've experienced with separatists or, you know... isolationist, I don't know if there's a word for that, but your true hardcore Ku Klux Klan will tell you, we love African Americans, we love Asians, we love them.
Sure.
And what we are saying is what is obvious to them is that cohabitation doesn't work. Birds of a feather flock together. We should just give in to that. And what's causing all these problems and crime and tension is you know, forcing this unnatural thing. You know, there should be a continent for every color, and then the world would be at peace.
Yeah.
And so we love the blacks so much. We're what we're saying is in their best interest. Go back to Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, repatriation.
So it's not a hatred in their minds. They're good people. It's a Christian organization.
Yeah.
In their minds, they're good people. And the Bible talked about, be separate and cross or, interracial mingling was forbidden in the Old Testament. And so they think they're doing God's will. They think they're moving towards world peace.
Wow.
Wow.
It goes back to religion, doesn't it?
It does. And fear and insecurity, which I think is obviously fed by religion. Mm-hmm. We would not be having this conversation, and Stephen would not be such a marginalized person if it weren't for religion. So let's just say that. Let's just get that fucking on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
I mean, across the board, you mean?
And we're hundreds of years away from that. But like all of this talk, someday there is a generation of Homo sapiens that are going to look back on this and go, what?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I hope so.
We have so much stigma and stereotype and projection and fear and xenophobia, and it's all rooted in personal insecurity, which is fed primarily by religion.
Yeah.
That you are a fallible, broken, sinful person, and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just the need to elevate oneself over others, and the first thing to go is this color of the skin.
Right.
I mean, like this.
Have you seen Hidden Figures?
Yes, I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. It's a new film out now.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving the theater, I heard this little kid say to his mother, "Why did you treat black people so bad back then?"
White kid?
Yeah, white kid. Why'd you, like he's never seen anything like that.
Wow.
They, when they watch it, they'll say, "Well, those people are being mean for no reason,"
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing moment, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
You have basically just this naive, virgin little boy that doesn't have any prejudice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's looking up. He looks
like
at this movie and he turns to his mom and says, "Why'd you guys do that?"
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think in 25
beautiful.
Yeah, in 25 years they're going to be saying, "How come you were doing that to gay people? What's wrong with you?"
Yeah. Well,
those kind of
already the millennials are there.
Oh, yeah.
My 4 kids are like, no big deal. They don't understand any of the angst and animosity and energy around, LGBT.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. We're on our way to see, the Christians would say this is depravity. This is slippery slope. We're on our way to moral depravity, and we're sitting here celebrating that we're on our way to moral enlightenment.
Yeah.
This is the two Americas we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's religion is kind of keeping it from, I read people say, "Oh, the old generation needs to die off, and then you millennials are going to take over, the youth's going to take over, and the world's going to be a better place." The youth are, certain sections of the youth are being taught the same things that the old generation was taught.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. There may be fewer of them, but I think there'll be crazy ass people in every generation.
Yeah. You're right. There are 20-somethings that do still have homophobia.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was taught.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come natural.
But they're trying to make, normal, that which is happening in the culture now. So eventually it'll become the new normal.
Yeah.
So I really hope so.
My dog passed away December 2nd, and but one thing that he was a racist.
Your dog was a racist?
Because people would come over. Now, there were certain people that, for whatever reason, if he smelled fear or whatever, we got all kinds of mythologies about what dogs can smell or not. But he did not like black people. And he would automatically, if you were black, he would bark.
Bark at you?
What he's doing is he's just using his eyes. And he was, as a puppy, he was raised around white people, so that's what he's used to. So this is something different. This is an anomaly, at least in his little brain. And so he doesn't trust it. But I'm just saying that's, I would say, I'm basically saying racism is the mindset of a dog.
Well, it could be if you hang around.
But it used to be embarrassing because I was like, my dog's a racist.
Would there be then dogs that hang around black people that don't like white people?
I imagine so. If that theory holds,
yeah. Because my little dog doesn't like little kids. It doesn't matter what color they are.
Doesn't trust small people.
Because we don't have small people around.
Yeah.
It's all adults.
Yeah, that's
so when
a
it
scary
sees a little kid, he's like, or she looks at it both on television and live in person. She goes crazy.
Yeah. All right, we got to get back to Stephen.
Sorry,
Bob and I could have a conversation all day.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're at what point did you mentioned it, but I didn't catch the age you were when you decided this is bullshit, Christianity?
I had doubts from as early as like maybe puberty, 12, 13, 14. But, you're not supposed to doubt. It's kind of frowned upon. So I was just like, well, I just kind of need to study more. I need to have more faith, or I need to just go to the next level with God. So I used to get up every morning at like 4 a.m., read the Bible for hours, pray. I fasted. I did everything that you're supposed to do. It was probably closer to when I went to Southern, like I'd say maybe 17, that I really started to have like legitimate doubts.
Okay, so you're this early morning prayer guy in a Bible study. You're there, and this is your devotion. This is part of your practice. This is part of your faith. Yeah. And you're connecting with God.
Right.
And you're starting the day with your cup filled with the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So that you can walk out that day with the joy of the Lord as your strength, and love and kindness to people around you, so you can be a witness, so you can be an ambassador for Christ. I mean, this is your level of devotion, right?
Yeah. I always hated witnessing. I hated having to do that.
You're an introvert, that's why.
Yeah, well, that's why.
And by when I said witnessing, that you're bearing witness, meaning
right.
you are just being in front of people.
You're an example.
You have to carry yourself a certain way.
Yeah, there is in Christendom there is a use of the word witness that means tell people the gospel verbally.
Yeah, that's the part I didn't like.
Yeah. Did you ever go door to door with the church or anything?
Sort of. There was a time, and I did this after I was going to college. This was kind of like I couldn't find a job, so someone told me about this. And it's like, oh, you can sell these, these Christian Adventist books. You can potentially make this much money, and they'll put a percentage on your school bill. So it's like, oh, this is great. And I told my mom about it. She's like, I don't know if you'd be good at it.
Not a good vote of confidence.
Right.
Well, being an introvert, yeah.
So I did it for maybe a little over a month. At that time, I was in South Carolina, and we drove 3 hours to a church in Georgia. And, we slept there, and then all during the week, Sunday through Friday. No, I take that back. Sunday through Thursday. Every day from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., we would go to these different areas and just like canvass the place. Like go door to door. You're selling these books. You got like the old Bible story one. It's kind of the one you start with. You got a cookbook, and you tell them like, hi, I'm working my way through school, and it was like some random, they didn't put the actual organization, but it'd be like home health education,
as opposed to Seventh-day Adventist.
Right, because then like if they're Jehovah's Witness or Catholic or Baptist, they'd be like, oh, I already got mine, I'm good.
Okay, but so you have to be
cloaked.
Gotta be sneaky
and cloaked.
At midway, I was like, I'm gonna call this group Hustlers for Christ. I feel like we're part of a gang, really.
So you were staying at the church, sleeping at the church, and then going out and doing that all
every day.
And this is in
like 90-degree heat,
summer between your freshman year of college. Or something?
Yeah.
Wow. And the reason you went from North Carolina 3 hours to Georgia was that's just where the company told
that's
you.
Where it was South Carolina.
Yeah, but you went to Georgia to do door-to-door.
Right.
As opposed to staying in South Carolina.
Right.
So that organization said, well, this is the town that we want you to canvass.
Yeah, or that's where the church was, where everyone was going to stay.
Okay.
I mean, we would go. I know we went to Alabama one day. We went to a bunch of different areas. Mm-hmm. And we did neighborhoods. We did, shopping kind of, store kind of, and that got a little bit more sketchy because no soliciting and all that. But they're always like, just ignore that until they actually hey, you gotta go.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So of course, I didn't want to do any of that because
it's comfort zone for you. It's hard. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So at the end of the whole experience, they kicked me out of the program. Because they said I didn't sell enough books. Mm-hmm. Even though the money that I made was on par to minimum wage, like a minimum wage job. But apparently, according to them, that wasn't enough. So I was like, well, so much for doing this for, spread the good news of Jesus,
Wow.
Yeah. And I found out later that the person who made the most money actually stole some of the money from the church. But,
Oh, these are good people.
Yeah.
Good people.
That's a little microcosm of America right there. Because you got the bottom 99 that are good people and they're only making minimum wage, and you got the guys at the top who are making a bunch and stealing it.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
it. Welcome to America. So your dad was your mom the most religious influence, or were they both?
Definitely my mom.
Yeah.
My dad, he my dad is kind of like, that picture in the background of like the house you grew up in, and it's there, and sometimes you forget about it, but it's there. Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely there. You see it sometimes,
but not a very strong presence.
Yeah. That's my dad.
Yeah. Your sister a Christian to this day, or?
Yeah, she's still Adventist.
She knows you're gay.
She does.
She knows you're atheist.
Yes, she knows that.
How does she treat you?
Pretty much the same. I think we definitely love each other. I wouldn't say that we're as close as we probably could be, but I think it's kind of always been that way.
So down in Chattanooga, is she there?
Yeah.
Your mom?
Yeah, my mom and sister.
Are all in the same town. You live by yourself?
I stay with 3 other roommates right now.
Yeah.
So I live like 10 minutes away.
Did you finish your degree, your bachelor's?
No. What I did was I went to Southern for 2 years for theology. Actually, I changed my major a lot, but it was all religious related. Like, it'd be theology one semester, then be religious ed the next, and whatever, just because I knew I didn't really want to do it, but I was kind of motivated by my mom, so it's just like, well, just try to figure out a way I can make it work for me.
Yeah.
But at the end of those 2 years, one, it was just too expensive, and I was kind of, that was at the point, I'd say it was like 2010. I was really just starting to like, I don't know.
You're kind of over it.
I'm not believing this as, like, I'm not. It was just falling apart.
Wasn't working for you.
Yeah.
So, does your mom know you're atheist?
Yeah. My mom, my grandma, my cousin. I have a very small family, so it's like mom, sister, grandma.
Okay.
And like one cousin.
Yeah.
Kind of gives a shit. That's it. Nobody knows.
Does she know you're gay?
Only my sister knows, and even that is kind of like,
isn't that something? That's something to me.
Well,
it's like
she might know.
Yeah,
it's a possibility she might know.
But being atheist is okay. Being gay, I don't think I want to tell her.
Well, sometimes it's the other way around with guests. It just depends. Sometimes it's harder to come out as gay than it is to be atheist, and vice versa.
Well, I'll tell you how it happened. Okay. I was living with my mom. I actually was living with my mom up until May of last year.
Okay.
After I went to Southern, I took a year off because I was just working and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I got into a program at Chattanooga State for surgical technicians. And in order to be in that program and still function, at that time my mom was unemployed. And I was working full time. So if I wanted to go to school, I still needed to work full time in order for everything to still work out.
Pay the bills.
Yeah. So I worked on weekends, which meant
can't go to church.
No church, the Sabbath thing. And at first my mom was kind of hesitant about that, but you kind of get a slight pass in Adventism if you're doing like health related stuff. So it's like if you're a doctor or you're a nurse or whatever, they're like, oh, you're doing good on the Sabbath. So,
and the Sabbath is Saturday to
right,
to
the sunset Friday
and the Jews
sunset Saturday, yeah. So, and at that point, I was already to the point where I really hated going to church. I hated going through the Sabbath period, and I would do it because, I live with my mom. I don't want to make waves or whatever, but I would say probably like 2011, 2012, at that point, it really just kind of like faded away. And I was just kind of doing it just out of cultural whatever. So essentially, it was a year-long program. So that meant I didn't go to church for a year, graduated, was still working on the weekends, and my mom's like, well, don't you want to go to church? Or, like ask your supervisor if you can switch your shift or whatever. I'm like, oh, she doesn't have any shifts, And so it just kind of kept going on. She would keep periodically asking that. She's like, you don't ever want to go to church again? I'll never hear you talk of Jesus. A real Christian would talk about Jesus and would want to do his work. And so it's just kind of like, it just kept grating on me. And so one day I was like, okay. Oh, she said something that kind of triggered it. It was like, you're lying to me. You're not being honest with me. So I was like, all right, you want me to be honest? Here it is. And I told her.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you put it? You say I don't believe anymore, or you probably didn't.
Yeah,
use the word atheist.
Well, I didn't say atheist. So I was just like I don't believe in God anymore. I don't want to go to church anymore. I'm done with it.
What was her reaction?
It was not positive.
Did she cry?
Yeah.
What's the Adventist position on hell? Does she think you're going to hell? Is she worried?
Yeah, she thinks I'm going to hell.
Probably being gay
sure.
too. Well, she doesn't
know about that. Well, she might know about that, but I haven't confronted for her, so it's like okay,
it's just a suspicion.
Like he might be gay, but he hasn't given away to temptation or to the sin.
Well, that's the thing too in Christendom is you can be gay, but just don't practice it because that's actually where the sin. Well, of course, Jesus said if you lust after somebody
in your heart.
So anyway, it's all.
Yeah, it's like I'm okay until I have actual sex or something.
Yeah,
whatever.
Why we care? Wow. You're okay.
Yeah. But just the notion that your mom cried, because she cares about you, she loves you, she doesn't want you to go to hell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she did cry. We kind of argued for a while first.
Yeah, that's always.
And because it was already a heightened conversation, they were kind of going back and forth with me, and then I just came out with that, and she wasn't expecting that, and then it was just kind of like,
whoa,
yeah. So then it just went to another level, and she was just throwing questions at me like, well, you believe in history, right? And I'm like, yeah, some things, I don't necessarily accept everything that has been told to me, but because the Bible, because Jesus is part of history. You don't even believe in Jesus, do you? I'm like, well, I mean, it's possible. It's like, this is not working out. It's not going to end well.
Wow.
And it didn't. And it was ongoing. That was 2014 when this happened. And I lived with her for...
Until May of 16.
Yeah. That's actually 2 years. Jeez. I thought it was just 1 year, but now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that was 2 years. I don't know how I did that.
And there's probably at least somewhat of a wedge that's driven between your relationship.
Definitely. We still love each other.
Sure.
So that kind of, I guess, transcends beyond some of the religious stuff. But for a long time, we would just be... someone who really is, this is their life. They believe in this. You can just have regular conversation and then they're just going to go into it. I could be talking about the weather. I could be talking about, I'm going to the grocery store to get food today. And all of a sudden it turns into, because the Lord appointed this time for me to get this food and, made the sky clear so that it wouldn't rain on me when I go to get it, and it's just like, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they associate everything.
I mean, it's completely wrapped up in it. Yeah.
It's an all-consuming ideology for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever struggle with depression?
Yeah.
Have you ever been diagnosed? Are you medicated or?
No. I've just talked to people, and not even when I was at Southern, one of my teachers, he was a religion teacher. And we're still friends to this day.
Cool. One of your professors.
Yeah.
That you've remained friends with.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he actually used to be a pastor before he taught at Southern.
Is he a Christian?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. And
you know that you're not?
Yeah, he knows everything.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows everything.
So are you a project for him to turn around?
No, we've had conversations about that, and he's really tried to stay out of the way of that.
Of you being you.
Right. He just wants me to be me.
Well, good. That's an interesting relationship there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, did he point out that he thought maybe you were depressed, or?
Yeah. We had a lot of conversations about that, and he actually paid for me to go to a therapist.
How'd that go?
It was interesting. Ultimately, I felt like I couldn't relate to the therapist.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Was it a Christian?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
But see, at that time, I was still
okay.
kind of. I had doubts, but I wasn't like. I wasn't
on
even.
the fence.
I wasn't even really thinking about leaving at that time. It was like 07, 08, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it makes sense that you would see a Christian then.
Yeah, but
you still didn't connect.
Yeah, I didn't really connect him. I went to him like 3 times. The first time, I cried a lot.
Okay, a lot of shit came out.
Right. Well, it was just like he asked me some questions, and like by the time we got to like the perfect question, I was just crying, and it was just like really emotional. I was like, I didn't mean to do all of that. I was just.
Well, those emotions were just sitting there under the surface.
Yeah.
And you probably remember emoting a lot as a child, or did you stuff it? Or?
I used to cry all the time.
Okay.
I would say up until somewhere in the teenage. Yeah, it's like, okay, I gotta stop this crying.
Toughen up.
I gotta stop
Big
crying
boys
all the
don't
time
cry.
because I cry about everything. Like my mom would be like, like say like your mom tells you not to touch something and then you touch it, and then she gives you a talking to about it. I would just cry.
Because you didn't want to disappoint her.
Yeah, but it would just be like that way about everything. And like by the time I was like 14, 15, I'm like, okay, I gotta like just stop.
Yeah.
So I gotten pretty good now.
Yeah. And
well, good is relative.
You're right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure too your mom is thinking, oh, it's a phase. He'll come back. He's not
his
gonna,
faith or his both?
It's like like a phase you go through.
Oh,
as
yeah.
Kids go through, because she's seen him grow up and she knows,
He'll come back to Jesus.
Yeah, he'll come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was never like rebellious. I never did like the.
This is your rebellion in her mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much.
That's what Bob's implying is that
Yeah.
this is just your rebellious stage.
I finally got to it.
Yeah, and it just happens to manifest against religion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the reason I ask is that, even circumstantially, you have, I would say, grounds for sadness or loneliness. I mean, just because down in Chattanooga, one of the reasons why you came up here, as opposed to just do it over Skype, is we've been talking about getting together for months.
Yeah.
We talk on the phone. We message on the internet, Facebook and such. And there's several people in the Everyone's Agnostic support group for Middle Tennessee.
Yeah. That's
a secret Facebook site for people that are, half the people on there are not out of the closet, so it's confidentiality and anonymity. But it's a lonely place. If you were white and straight, it would be a lonely place.
Yeah,
but
it would be.
But you're black and gay and atheist, and so
wow.
I mean, one of the questions we asked our guests is what's the future look like for Stephen in your mind? And I can see where you might feel stuck.
I do a lot of the time. I think the only reason for a church is the community. Yeah. I mean, now I know a lot of Christians would disagree with me.
Oh, well, yeah.
But
say salvation, but
yeah. But like that's the thing, because the whole God thing. Even when I was a Christian, for me, church never really fulfilled my needs, even when I would be active in it. Mm-hmm. So for me, what kept me in the religion or in belief
was the social structure.
Well, not even that. The belief thing was like separate from all of that. Mm-hmm. The social thing kind of is like group think. Like, hey, you're people who think like you, and they're supposed to be like your family or friends, even though they're really not. But at least they're there.
Yeah, they're like-minded,
right? But like for me, it was just like God was separate from that. Like I had my personal thing going on with him.
Because you were such a devoted quiet time person and personal time, like hours in the morning.
Yeah.
So you would get more out of personal Bible study and personal time in prayer than you would sitting there listening to the sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. I did too. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, by the time that unraveled, that was like, well, what's the point? Because I already don't feel accepted here, or I don't feel like unnecessarily wanted.
Yeah, and now this private time is feeling hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's
what's
tough.
the point?
Yeah.
The community thing, like when it does work though, it's really good.
Absolutely.
It's probably like the best example of community when it works.
When it works.
When it works.
Yep. You got any hobbies?
Do I have any hobbies? Yeah. I'm really into music.
Listening, performing, writing?
Not so much on the performing part yet. I do a lot of like electronic kind of instrumental hip hop stuff. I do some like lyrics too, but I haven't recorded anything, so still to come. But
do you play an instrument?
I play a little bit of keyboard. Emphasis on the little bit. I'm still working on it.
But do you have like GarageBand or some kind of audio gear that you're making like electronic music?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you send me some so I can use it as a part of the show?
Yeah.
Like Excellent. make it segue music or whatever?
Yeah.
Is it anything like Moby or what is it?
It is kind of similar to Moby.
Dude, Moby music is perfect for segues. In fact, you want to be my new segue guy. I could use it because I'm still using that guy that did that shit in the New York City subway, the handpan thing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I've had several listeners say, change your goddamn music.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe you're my new guy.
Yeah. I'll try and come up with something. Yeah.
I mean, it's some of that rave stuff too?
I haven't really ventured out there. It's kind of like I incorporate a lot of different like sounds into it, but I haven't like done anything that's like.
Well, the thing about Moby is it's contemplative too. So like there's almost some good meditation music type stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm all ears. I'm curious. Seriously, I think that'd be interesting to hear. So the other thing was that the reason I ask about hobbies is sometimes the hobbies are, I always use the bowling league. There are ways to make friends outside of drinking or going to church.
Right.
Like the bar and the church are the two top places where
you're going to meet people
in American society where people hook up.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just romantically, just friends.
Just friends, yeah.
And so I don't know, just looking out for you, man. It just feels lonely. It just feels very, very lonely, secluded, I guess is the word.
Yeah. Do you have a partner now? Somebody that at least you can? Oh man.
Have you ever?
No.
Oh.
It's double whammy.
Yeah.
No, I mean
that would be helpful.
Are you on any kind of online dating?
No.
Man.
I know, I'm behind. Part of it has to do with just getting over guilt and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I've had some experiences even recently that it's just like, okay, I broke another barrier.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
That's
really just kind of on me.
Now, when you say break barriers, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. Spreading your wings.
Sure. And that's going to be really great, really helpful to have somebody to share your life with and, go to see movies and just hang out. And, that's fun. It changes you because we're social animals. Yeah, we love that.
I want to be careful not to project onto you my need for a companion. Yeah. Some people don't have the same level of need. And I had an uncle that went his whole life as a single man.
Really? Wow.
And died happy.
Yeah.
He was a playboy at the same time. And I think that's probably
very happy.
That's probably. For some people, their singleness is they want their freedom.
Sure.
They don't want to be ball and chain to one person or whatever. I don't know. To each his own. But you're finding your way.
Yeah, I think I would like to have someone, but it's like, I don't know. I think you're onto something with the hobbies. I think that's kind of like the best way to like, if I can find someone that like is into the same things that I'm into.
Oh, exactly.
Like, appreciates art and like, just it's hard. Like the average person, like when you're just looking around, they just kind of want to fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably just true anywhere, any gender, whatever. But yeah.
No, but there's
getting
people
past that.
Yeah, right. There's people out there that want to do more than fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With you.
Right.
Seriously. How do you get along with your roommates?
Roommates are okay. Some of them are people that I roomed with at Southern. So, they're actually all Adventists, even though they're not really like
hardcore.
You're not hardcore. Like I'm always impressed as like, okay, what's the new thing that you guys do now? Like, you guys don't go to church now? Like, do you play board games on Sabbath? Like, you know, what new levels have you guys, you know, expanded things to?
So as a devotee of Seventh-day Adventist, on Sundays, or excuse me, Saturday, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, what couldn't do?
Anything secular is a no.
Really? No TV,
so it's
no
a
movies.
sacred day.
You're right. No TV, no movies, no like playing football or like sports or whatever.
That's Friday night.
Just
too.
no playing. Period.
So what do you just sit in the dark? I mean, what do you do?
Friday night we would have family worship, and then we would have dinner. So that kind of takes care of Friday. Saturday, you get ready to go to church. You go to church
Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Go to lunch.
If it's in the wintertime, then sunset's early, so
better.
By the time you have lunch, it's over. If it's in the summertime, then that's when it's kind of like, okay, you know,
interminable.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I was not a fan.
Well, let's wrap it up. What's something about yourself that is unique and very few people know about you, besides that you're gay and atheist?
Definitely the music thing. Also, I like to write. I actually have a blog where I write.
Really?
About.
Can you tell it what is? Can we publicize it here?
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's Barry Orchestra at tumblr.com.
Okay. Barry Orchestra.
Yeah.
At tumblr.com.
Yeah, we'll put it up.
Yeah, it's kind of like my handle.
Now, in saying that, people probably figure out that we've already decided it was okay to use your name.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
So what do you write about? Just a memoir? Just personal experiences? Something that...
No, this blog is like strictly about music.
Okay.
Like
critique?
Yeah, critique and just like kind of like my own opinions on crap. It actually started from I started making a playlist for a friend who I felt he was listening to, like, he's very narrow-minded in his taste. So I was like, hey, I'm going to make a list of you, like, my favorite songs of the year, and you're going to listen to it, and then you're going to give me, like, feedback.
Sure.
And so, like, the first couple of years, he would just, like, tell me, and then after that, he started...
Tell you what he thinks.
Right, tell me what he thinks. And then I think 2013 or whatever, he started writing blogs about it. Like, he would listen to the song, and then he would write, like, whatever he's feeling or thinking about it, or, like, the subject matter or whatever. Yeah. So I was like, well, man, you're making me look bad. Now I have to one-up you. So then I started posting a blog and, like, kind of like the same thing. And that's kind of what it is. Like, every year I'll do, like, you know, 40 different songs.
It's almost the equivalent of a mixtape that you would give to your friend.
Yeah, it really is. And now, like, other people have kind of latched on to it.
Okay.
And,
well,
like,
that's great.
Started writing responses. So it's just a little side project.
Slink has a podcast. He calls it a podcast, but it's actually just almost a radio show of a bunch of songs in a row that he's picked out. Is it like that? Is it online to where somebody can listen to your playlist? Or is it just a list of songs that they would...
Well, it's like a blog for every song. So, and also, like, I do have the playlist to the year. Like, I started it in 2011. So, like, from, like, last year on, you know, I have the playlist on YouTube, on Spotify, on Google Play. So
like, that's what I mean. That's where people could find your playlist.
Right. Yeah.
And listen to it. And then...
Yeah, and, like, in the About section, all the links are there.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Wow.
So do you have any way of counting how many people are clicking on your blog?
I don't know.
Have you ever, you don't track
I have not tracked
how many readers you have?
I do post them to Facebook, and that's literally, like, the only thing. Like, if you look on my Facebook feed, you will just see, like, posts of music. And a thing that I've done is, like, every time I post it, I will post, like, some of my favorite lyrics from the song in all caps. And I won't do anything else. It'll just be, like, all caps, the lyrics, and then the blog link. And that's it. Like, I don't post anything about politics. I don't post anything about other stuff. Even though my mom did block me, which I don't understand.
She blocked you?
Yes, she did.
Even though you really weren't poking at her religion
I've never posted anything
just
anti-religious.
It's benign musical stuff.
Yeah.
And she blocked you.
It could be because the music is secular.
Why don't you ask her?
Oh, okay.
Oh, the secular music. Yeah.
The secular.
I mean, every once in a while there might be, like, one religious song that's, like, so good that, like, it kind of has to be there. But
so how do you feel about saying, "Mom, what's up? You blocked me. What's going on?"
Well,
Do you have that kind of open relationship?
we've talked about it, but it's kind of like she told me after I'd already figured it out. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean, it's just like it's funny because back in 2010, when she wasn't really using the computer, she was like, oh, that Facebook is of the devil, it's just he's using all your time and it's distracting you from the signs of the times. And like now she's on Facebook. It's like now you've blocked me, so okay.
Well, just to speculate, for somebody who loves her son and has in her own worldview and paradigm that you're actually in a very, very bad place that hurts her feelings. She kind of wasn't. She don't want to be reminded that you exist.
Well, I think she doesn't want to be reminded that I'm thinking outside of the box.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's kind of what I meant. I mean,
yeah.
She wishes that you'd come back to the Lord. You'd stop this secular music stuff. You go straight.
Yeah.
All this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She actually invited me to church yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
It's a tough place, man. I feel for you. And I'm grateful that you drove all the way up and that we are in community virtually.
Yeah.
But I wish the best for you, and I hope that you can, find a path that is fulfilling and find a world that accepts you just as you are.
Yeah.
You think you might have to leave Chattanooga? You might have to go to a bigger city, or?
I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about maybe going to the West Coast. At some point, I'm probably gonna do like a traveling position of what I do.
Oh.
So hopefully that'll kind of give me a little bit more leverage.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Figure out where
that might even fit, like with your history of being a military brat. That might feel comfortable. It's like changing scenery every now and then.
Yeah.
I have a cousin that's a traveling nurse, and it's probably a similar program.
Yeah.
For techs, for instrument techs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll go and you'll teach, or you'll go and you'll
just go and
do.
clean.
Go and work. Yeah.
Work and then take off and do it again someplace else.
Do like a 13-week assignment somewhere. Okay. Or, whatever.
Oh, what a great! That's cool.
It's a cool program.
Yeah,
I mean, the traveling nurse thing is really exciting for single people.
Yeah. Pretty much anything medical that you can get certified in, you can do that. Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a great need for it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, good things ahead. Good things ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, but a lot of it's up to you as well. But good things ahead. I have a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you do this moving around thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I got it. Even just coming out here, it was good to like see like different scenery and like.
Yeah.
What do you mean, coming here today?
Yeah.
To Murfreesboro?
Just going on the drive.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's helpful.
I got my first car when I moved out.
Okay.
So I've only
that was just in May.
Yeah. So I've only had this car for 6 months. This is probably the longest I've ever driven. Like
it's a nice car. So you took on a car payment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Welcome to the real world.
Well, it is adult of you to take ownership and some initiative, and I think that's what we're starting to see is that you're. I mean, the more you get your confidence, and the more you love yourself.
I'm learning to love myself.
There you go. Well, we all are,
day.
but that's a big deal.
Yeah,
and that's hard work.
I didn't used to.
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
You've been shamed your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so good on you, man. And we're rooting for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Good things. There's a blossoming that's happening here.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. Yeah. And we're a bunch of old fart white guys. What do we? But I mean,
True that.
But but we've certainly been there.
Yeah.
Just as a person.
Yeah.
And
well, thanks for coming on.
Good things.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is a great experience.
Cool.
Yeah.
For us too.
Yeah.
So my buddy Steven from Chattanooga reached out to me through Facebook or something. Mm-hmm. And he has since, like some of the people in the local Middle Tennessee group, like Dave Warnock, Mark Stevens, these are former guests of the show, and other people in the group. And he's built relationships with all these people. Because, in fact, I think I've said something about, well, there's a guy from Chattanooga that's a friend of mine. And Dave goes, Steve Barry? and we found out that he's actually been talking to both of us. So he is proactive in taking initiative to build relationships, and because of that loneliness, that, like you said, that triple minority that he is,
Yeah.
And I don't know.
He seemed quite composed for a young man.
Yeah.
But boy, there's a lot of stuff going on underneath, though. That's for sure.
There is, and like you said, I think it is a blossoming.
Yeah, that's the sense I'm getting.
Military, traveling a lot. Those are all shallow relationships. I mean, your whole history is shallow relationships. Plus, I think he is naturally introverted. But I did not sense, like you said, composed. I did not sense a lot of insecurity.
No.
I think he's comfortable in his own skin. I think he's getting more and more comfortable in his own skin.
Right. And
that has to do with accepting and saying yes to the fact that I'm gay, and there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that I don't believe this shit, and there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that I'm black in a white privileged America, there's nothing wrong with that. I can do this. I mean, you just feel it emerging, and you feel it. It feels healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, quite an interesting young man, thoughtful. And that's good. That's good to see that. But I think he's got to make that move. That's the sense I get. I don't know.
No, I do. I think the traveling thing would be great for him.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious to hear his music now.
Yeah.
I've really been looking for bumper music and segue music.
Yeah.
And if, he's got some stuff that he can, it's as a composer and a producer of that stuff, I could tell him, I just need 1 minute. Here and there, just little sound effects almost, as far as just segues and stuff. That would be great. I'm anxious to work with him on that.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to hear that. Well, very interesting. Very good.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Thank you, Cass. See you next time.
Where's the best place to meet your online friends? Where's the best party where the fun never ends? Where will Bobby Carey be our MC too? I bet you'd go if you only knew. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon in Hickory, North Carolina. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon, and the speakers couldn't be finer. We've got Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra, Callie Wright and Lawrence Krauss. We've got god-awful movies coming to you live, and Jim Craig and Shelley Siegel really jive. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon. Meet the people in your favorite podcasts. It's ReasonCon, it's ReasonCon, the conference where you'll have a blast.
Hi friends, are you a non-believer living in the Bible Belt? Do you want to meet some amazing atheists but have a limited budget? Then check out the Nashville Nuns Conference, or NanoCon for short, which will be held on March 18th, 2017 in Nashville, Tennessee. This year's speakers include Matt Dillahunty, Mandisa Thomas, JT Eberhard, Gail Jordan, Jim Helton, Callie Wright, and St. Patrick, with musical guests the Sunday Assembly Nashville Band and Chibi Kodama. Just go to NashvilleNuns.com to register because it's February and I'm just now getting to producing this promo.